to be to this attack on civilians?
Response by whom?
Hezbollah and its friends in the resistance.
Well, they're used to that. I mean, people just take that for granted. The Israelis wantonly kill civilians. I mean, all you have to do is look at the genocide in Gaza. This is nothing new. Everybody understands this. The question is, what can Hezbollah do to retaliate? And that remains to be seen. But I don't think anybody's going to be shocked or surprised.
No, but what I mean is this going to bring about the confrontation that Netanyahu wants? I mean, last week, General Kirillo was in Israel twice. Was he saying to Netanyahu, go ahead, do what you want, we'll be with you, or you go into Lebanon, you're on your own?
Well, he would never say to Netanyahu that if you go into Lebanon, you're on your own. That doesn't work. Even if he had told Netanyahu that we wouldn't provide ground troops, or we wouldn't do this, or we wouldn't do that, or we wouldn't protect them diplomatically, Netanyahu would just ignore him, because Netanyahu can override the Biden administration. In a battle of wills between the Biden administration and Netanyahu wins 9 out of 10 times. So I don't think what the general told Netanyahu matters very much.
Well, you have a lame duck president who doesn't have to face the electorate again, who can cease the arm deliveries with a phone call.
He could do that. There's no question about that. But do you seriously think he would do that? Joe Biden?
I don't think he would do it, but he doesn't think the way you and I do, and I don't mean that in a negative way. Who knows what's going on in his head? Some of our colleagues have suggested that General Kirillo went there to read Netanyahu the Riot Act. Whether the federal government, whether the American government follows through on that so-called reading of the Riot Act or not, is another issue.
See, I find it hard to believe that Joe Biden sent anybody over there to read him the Riot Act.
Will Joe Biden send Marines to help invade Lebanon on the ground?
I do not believe that will happen. I would be truly shocked if we sent ground forces in. If we provided some air assets, that wouldn't surprise me, or naval assets. But ground forces, that I find hard to believe.
Does Netanyahu hope to provoke a war with Iran, notwithstanding the strength of Iran, its distance from Israel, the size of its military, the size of its population? I'm sounding like Mearsheimer now. The wealth of its country. I know these things that you look at from listening to your lectures and from our personal conversations. What is the likelihood that Iran is stronger than Israel? And wouldn't the probability that Russia would give Iran whatever it can, not whatever it wants, whatever it can, deter Netanyahu? Or is he still determined to take on Iran and to pick a fight with Hezbollah as some precursor to taking on Iran?
I think your commentary is missing the most important point. That is, he wants to drag us into the war, and he wants it to be a war between Iran on one side and the United States and Israel on the other side. And what he wants us to do is use our awesome military capability to really whack Iran. You were talking about the Hezbollah scenario. Would the Americans come in? The really interesting question is the Iran scenario. If the Iranians come into the fight, will the Americans come into the fight?
Okay, play that out, Professor.
Well, I think if the Iranians come into the fight, we will come into the fight. And it will be us and the Israelis against the Iranians. And we desperately want to avoid this. I mean, we want to avoid a war between Hezbollah and Israel in good part because we don't want Iran to come in, which means we have to come in, and then we end up in a war with Iran. The Israelis have been trying to make that war happen for a long time. You remember on April 1st, they bombed
Yes.
the Iranian embassy in Damascus, and then they killed the Palestinian leader in Tehran. I mean, they're trying to make a U.S.-Iran war happen, and we're trying to make it not happen.
Here's